All right, so let's look at a few more examples on the hyperbola. So this one we're going to find all the things that we did in the last one, sketch the graph. And this time we have the equation x squared minus 9y squared plus 9 equals 0. So this one is not in our standard form. We always want to set these up as equal to 1 and have the x squared and the y squared on the same side. And just to kind of recap a little bit, we can tell this is hyperbola because we have the x squared and the y squared, and there's a different sign between them. So let's get this in more of a standard form. So when we do this, if we move the 9 to the other side, now we have negative 9. So let's divide by negative 9 because we need that to be a 1. And so we're going to get negative x squared over 9 plus y squared equals 1. And so let's switch these two terms because I think it's easier if you always write these kind of in the same way. So let's always have the positive term minus the next term minus the other term equals 1. So that way now we know this is going to open up vertically. And so our a is going to be 1, our a squared is 1, our b squared is 9. So let's write this over here. A squared is 1, b squared is 9. So that means that a equals 1, b equals 3. And so c squared is going to be a squared plus b squared, which would be 10. And so c is square root 10. And so now we can get all of these things. So the vertices are always going to be plus or minus a. And since this is opening vertically, let's put a star by this so that we can, that's our equation we're working with. So we're opening vertically, so the vertices will be on the y-axis. So we have plus or minus 1, 0 plus or minus 1. The focus points will be 0 plus or minus square root 10. And then the length of the transverse axis is the square or the absolute value of 2a. So that would just be 2. And then the asymptotes, remember those are always y equals whatever the denominator, square root of the denominator with the y over the square root of the denominator with the x. So in this case, plus or minus 1/3 x, or we'll just put x over 3. And so now we have enough, we can sketch the graph. So let's go the vertically we're going plus or minus 1. Horizontally, we're going out 3 in both directions. We're going to draw the box around that. And we are opening vertically. Well, before we do that, let's draw our asymptotes. So we draw the diagonals. And let's do the other diagonal. And then we're going vertically, so we can draw like something like that. Probably not the best drawing, but you get the idea. And then in this case, the focus points are going to be, so 1, 2, 3, a little bit beyond 3. So for square root 10, it'd be a little bit more than 3. So like that. All right. And so whenever so these, may not have ever seen these before, just like the ellipse in the last section. So I would suggest kind of do these in the same order. So you get the equation in the standard form, get your A, get your B, get your C, and then there's your A vertex. The A tells you your vertices, your C tells you your focus points. This is absolute value of 2a, and then this is always the y over the x as far as the denominators go. So you don't really go A or B because it depends on what direction it goes. But kind of get a very set pattern of doing these, and it makes it a little bit easier, I think, rather than trying to kind of scatterbrain remember, all these different moving pieces. So try to do them in the same way every time. That will make things a little bit easier. All right, so next one. So now we're going to find the equation. And so the vertices are 3, 0, and 4, 0, and the focus points are 4, 0, plus or minus 4, 0. And so this tells us that we're opening up horizontally. And so we know that we have x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. We know that a is going to be 3, and then c is going to be 4. So c squared is a squared plus b squared. So we have 16 equals 9 plus b squared, and so b squared is going to be 7. So we have x squared over 9 minus y squared over 7 equals 1. And there is our equation. And so that's really all you got to do. We'll skip sketching the graph. Like I said in the first video, selecting the graph on these on Web Designer are pretty easy, and especially the vertices given. So that makes it pretty easy to get. So we won't do those by hand because we don't need to learn that too much. All right, so then the next one, we have vertices are 0 and plus or minus 2, and then asymptotes are plus or minus 2x. So again, that is our A. We know that we're going to be opening vertically, so our equation is going to look like this, with the y squared coming first. And so we know that this will be y squared over 4 minus x squared, and then we got to figure out what the b is. Well, we know that 2 will be on top. So in this case, this will be a over b times x, and we know that that equals 2x. And so the a is 2, so 2x over b equals 2x. And so this, of course, implies that b equals 1. And of course, you don't really need to write the 1, but we'd already kind of started that. And so there you go. And so that's what we get. So just kind of start with, figure out which, when you're finding these equations, figure out which is being subtracted, x squared or y squared. Start with your basic form of the equation. The vertex will tell you what goes there, and then you can use either the asymptote or the focus points to find your b, or your b squared, as the case may be. All right, then the last one, find an equation for the hyperbola. Vertices 0 plus or minus 20, and then it passes through the point negative 530. So we know, again, this one's opening vertically because the vertex is on the y-axis. So we have y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. So our a is going to be 20. So this would be y squared over 200 minus x squared over b squared equals 1. And so now what you can do, anytime you have to find an equation and they tell you that it passes through a point, you're going to plug that point in for the x and the y. And that works anytime that you're looking for an equation and you're given that it passes through a point. That's always a strategy. So x is -5, y is 30. So we have 30 squared over 200 minus -5 squared over b squared equals 1. And now we can solve this equation for b, or b squared. We only really need to know what b is. We just need b squared. So 900, actually that should be 400 20 squared is 400. 900 over 400 minus 25 over b squared equals 1. And let's take this up here. So let's bring that over. So 1 minus 9/4, we could say. So that would be negative 25 over b squared equals negative 5/4. We can cancel the negatives, cross multiply. So we get 100 equals 5b squared. And so then we get b squared equals 20. Again, we don't really need to know what b is. We're just looking for b squared to plug in to the equation there. So we have y squared over 400 minus x squared over 20 equals 1. And that is our equation. Okay, so there, the homework's a little bit lengthy because the more you practice these, the easier they get, and hopefully by the end, I mean, there are kind of two sections. One where you're given the equation and you got to get the different parts, and then the second half you're finding the equation based on different things that you're given, either the vertices and points, or the vertices and focus points, or whatever it is. But the more you practice these, the easier these will get. And you want to make sure you practice these enough to where you can do these and the ellipse problems without getting too confused. So make sure you pay attention to the differences with those. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will help you out.